what I thought I'd do first is just have a chat and actually let you add things too, because I'm really aware. I sit outside both the college and the university worlds just now. I mean, I'm still doing ed tech and wandering about and doing interesting things, but a lot of what I'm putting up on the Scotland update are things that I'm observing going on, and a lot of you guys are much closer to the. I'll use chalk face. That's a very old-fashioned term, but you're much closer to the action than I am now. So it might be worth having a look at that first Padlet, and I'll rattle through. I'll start off by doing a kind of alt update, and then we can have a look at some of the other things. So I'll share my screen. Uh, Wait, and I'll go mad. That's what I'm doing, of course. Right, get rid of this. Wait. So I'm sharing. This is where I'm all fingers and thumbs. I'm sharing my screen. Stick that over there. Okay, so I'll start with a kind of alt update. And you can all edit this. So again, if there's something that I've missed, you think, gosh, Joe's just completely missed this item, then please just add it in. Because what we'll do is we'll rebroadcast it and I'll push it down to Alt UK when we're finished and publish it as well. So alt headlines is much excitement building around OER 26, which will be at the OU in Milton Keynes. Yeah, closer to the pixels. Yeah, thanks. I think you're right, Phil. But lots of excitement around OER 26. It's great that it's at the OU in Milton Keynes, and again from the committee people I've spoken to, that's been good, and it looks good in terms of getting numbers and doing all these kind of things, and keeping open education on the agenda. You will have noticed too the OER. The Alt now has a partnership with the Digital Learning Institute, and the Digital Learning Institute is offering qualifications around AI and for educators. I've not been much involved in that partnership other than being informed that it's going forward. But it is quite interesting. I do know some of the folk involved, the Digital Learning Institute, and I know them of old from other developments that came out of Ireland, probably around about 2014 or 2013, because I was involved in getting some of the earlier institutes set up. There was a digital analytics institute they set up, or digital marketing institute it was called. And when I was at the HQA, I helped them get things credit and levelled and various other things because they wanted to export into Europe. And at that point, the Irish equivalent of HQA was in meltdown. So I helped them roll a product out, and I can see it's still some of the same people involved, and they're a good crowd. So I'm interested to see how that sort of partnership goes. Amplify FE, I'm kind of directly involved in. Alt got a whole lot of money from the UFI Trust to reach into further education across the UK and do basically share the love of all the good things that Alt has got with FE colleges. And they got funding for 3 years. And that funding's now come to an end. And what we're now doing with Amplify FE is turning it. Oh, hi Keith. I can't see who's coming in. And that funding has now come to an end. And what we're doing with Amplify FE is we're turning it into an alt community of practice. And there'll be a programme and things coming out from September for that. But things like the newsletter and various other social media things will keep going. Interestingly, Amplify FE's got like 2,500 followers and things from across the UK further education colleges, which is actually it's been a real achievement. So there's been a lot of capacity built, and now all are going to keep taking it on. There was a development officer that was paid full time through through the UFI funding, and thankfully, all is keeping her on to do a couple of days a week to keep it moving forward. And I see Keith's arrived. The other thing that's happening in the background is that CMALT is being updated, and there'll be information on that coming out in due course. Keith, anything else you want to add in terms of alt headlines?
Thanks, John. Apologies for being a wee bit late. I was back from leave the other day and looked at the email for today's meeting and thought you sent round the link to the meeting. Didn't realise I had to register, so apologies. Have you? Have you covered OER
Yeah, you
26?
did it first. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, probably not. Then I think that's probably the main things for the moment. Maybe just to say that colleagues might be aware that we've recently expanded the board of trustees, and we'll be looking to do so further going forward. And Joe's obviously now joined us along with some other colleagues. And we'll be having further trustee appointments by election later this year. So that's maybe something that colleagues can just look out for and maybe help spread the word when that comes. But no, I think apart from that, Joe, if OER has been covered, that's probably everything, I think.
Oh, so that was the alt headlines, and what I did kind of cheekily, and this is what I was saying, probably more around my priorities and things I'm focused on. I've put a few other links up around digital skills and communities, AI, open education, and some other links, and I'll probably just chat you through some of these things because I think they're all worth having on your radar. I think, and if it's not directly related to you, it's probably worth taking back to your respective institutions. Uh, so I'll start with digital skills and communities. Uh, I've I joined the data lab and worked around the data lab when the data lab started, and data lab has now moved into doing a whole lot of work with the Scottish AI Alliance, or the Scottish AI Alliance is almost like a subset of the data lab. So it's been quite interesting to seeing all of that developing. On the strength of that, I've been invited. I didn't put a link to it because I thought it was egotistical, but I've been invited to speak at a couple of things at Holyrood events in June with the SQA around some of the work I did there. On AI and assessment and AI and HQA kind of policy. But if you haven't signed up, again, the Data Lab community there, it's now got a dedicated education community. There's probably about a thousand people in the AI community, AI education community alone. I don't know. I haven't looked. There's a whole lot of other big data and various other communities that aren't as relevant to me, so I haven't signed up for them. But just in the education community alone, there's probably about 1,000 sign-ups now. The Data Lab and the Scottish AI Alliance is international, so as well as being lots of Scottish people I recognise. It's actually a big international following, and it's a well developed site. And there's actually other quite useful workshops and things that come out from them. A lot of them free and online. Some of them they're running a I think I put it down. Maybe I didn't. They're running a big event in June, and uh, they've got the Wikipedia founder and things coming over to that. I'm not going to that because it's a 250 or £260 for a day ticket. But the online community is worth joining. Uh, College Development Network put out a digital skills in colleges report, authored actually by an old colleague of mine, Walter Patterson, who is a former HMIE. It's actually really good but depressing read. That lots of things that I always think should have moved on by now still haven't moved on. There's still lack of sharing, low staff digital skills, all of these things. If anything, it's a sort of plea to the system to have a bit more of a focus on both teaching and admin staff digital skills. Uh, a bit more tangentially, I was reached out to by this by he's a head teacher up. He's a head teacher up in the Highlands somewhere, and he's set up an AI collaborative for teachers and educators. So that it's another community, but for practitioners. And I think it's probably worth just knowing that they're on the radar. With my alt hat on, what I'm part of the community, but with my hat on, I'm hoping I can steer some of these teachers that are interested in AI and things towards alt basically. But it's a really good initiative, and again, I think Stuart has got something like 300 or 400 teachers across Scotland who've got an interest in sharing practice around AI in education. He's already got that all moving, which is remarkable because it's all he's doing it all off his own back. It's all free. I don't know. I'll pause for a minute there. I don't know if anybody else has got anything. I've got under other. Under other, I've included that DataFest Global link to that paid for event in Edinburgh. But has anybody got anything else to add under digital skills and communities? Is there anything else that's been bubbling about in the last 3 months that we might add to? It's okay. It's not compulsory. Just in case you had.
Nothing springing to mind
No,
specifically.
that's perfect. That's great. So I'll just rattle down the next comment, and it's great Louise is here. I headed a column just specifically AI, and I think, and it actually would be quite good to pick Louise's brain, which is here as well. Some of the things that are happening across the UK seem a bit contradictory, just a wee bit contradictory. Uh, So the work of skating, I think, is fantastic. I mean, it's amazing. It's really useful, and the reach you now have across universities and colleges is fantastic. And again, in the background, I've been helping a wee bit, just bulk up the college engagement, suggesting names and things to get more colleges involved. And what I hope I've got there are the two sort of principal links: the links to skating itself and how well connected it is now across further and higher education in Scotland, uh, and a link to the kind of latest paper on generative AI tools in higher education. Uh, and it's just great work. It's really good. The bit though I'm still picking up, and colleagues, I don't know about you, uh, but basically I'm seeing AI everywhere. And again, it might just be that bit of you being haunted by it, but but in the world I'm moving, I'm meeting academic bid writers and teachers and various other and lecturers and all who are all using AI like mad. I mean, they really are. I mean, and they're using it to write bids. They're using it to mark students' work. They're using it across a whole range things that you would think, oh, well, you need to be a bit careful with using it that way. But that's what's happening. And at the same time, in the business community in Glasgow, uh, in the business community in Glasgow's dominated by about, at the moment, lots of graduates are going and working for the banks in Glasgow. There's two or three big banks. They're about to lay off lots of people. They're about to lay off lots of people because everybody inside the bank's using AI now. Uh, and I met again at a dinner party. I met an accountant for a big Scottish insurance company, who's my age, and I was saying, "Have you not retired yet?" And he went, "No, they all call me Grandpa, but I still enjoy my work." He does project work inside a big Scottish insurance company. He told me how much all the young things are all doing vibe coding and doing various other things to speed up everything, and how unbelievable it is, and all these kind of things. So it's that bit of and again, it might just be me, but I'm seeing all of these things everywhere. And what I highlighted, I've got the scattering stuff, which I think is really good and measured and ethical and taking the right approach. But but uh, but then you read I don't know if you've seen the HEPI report on student generative artificial intelligence, which kind of doesn't quite contradict, but whereas Skeaton says people are taking a measured, very cautious kind of approach, HEPI does reflect that kind of everybody's doing it, and we need more safeguards and more training. So there's wee bits there. There's also again from Edinburgh, but also from the Centre for Teaching Excellence. The Centre for Teaching Excellence is Glasgow University based, but increasingly is using hubs. So, so back to the Data Lab and the Scottish AI Alliance, the Scottish Centre for Teaching Excellence is sensibly using the Edinburgh expertise to push out some really good support materials for teachers around AI. And I'll kind of stop there. There's a couple of other links there. I don't know if you've come across Leon Fursey's is work, but normally I kind of ignore him because he's a bit too headline seeking. But the paper there on resistance training toolkit chimed with me because it is about that very cautious approach to when and how to use AI and sensible exercises for your students so they can see ethical challenges and biases and hallucination and all of these things. There's some interesting exercises you could do with students there. YouthLink Scotland, it's happening everywhere. YouthLink Scotland's published a good guide for young people around learners and ethics for AI. And I'll stop there. The English schools have got stuff. I'm going to see what, so again for colleges. Most colleges use Microsoft Copilot, have access to Microsoft Copilot. Don't though yet have access to the tools that could create and build local agents because IT departments are terrified of opening up things to any admin staff or academic staff. And I put that in as a guide because there's actually, we need to, if we're going to use Copilot, which they've got licenses for, it's closed. It doesn't cost any more money. It's not the tokenization and all these kind of arguments that if they switch it on, it's going to cost the college more money or the university more money, isn't true. So there's some technical stuff in there about how if you did have Copilot, which they'll do, how you could make greater use of Copilot and local agents and things. So there's a raft of things there, but because we've got Louise. Louise, do you want to just say a few words about where Skating is?
Yep, happy to. Just to catch up, so Skating was formed 3 years ago, kind of organically, and we've moved into a little bit more of a formal structure with a committee and membership. Initially, it started out with higher education institutions, but we've been slowly but surely inviting in colleagues in colleges as well. So we haven't quite got full representation across all of the colleges yet, but thanks with your help, Joe, we are getting better representation, including people on the committee as well who are representing FEs. So that's very helpful. Just in relation to, I suppose, some of the network activities, one of the things that we're currently planning, I'll talk about three things. We'll talk about the research report in particular, and where that kind of sits in the overall thing. The other two things is just in relation to some kind of things that we're working on in the background. We are, as a network, working around bringing together what we're all doing around training for generative AI, particularly both staff and students across universities. So we're kind of getting together in a think-in in June to kind of consolidate that and maybe develop something that we can share, and that certainly will be an open education resource when we do. The other thing that we are doing is we're working towards having a symposium day, probably around September time, and we'll be inviting people to come along and join that. We don't have a location yet or anything like that. We have no funding, so it's all a little bit shoestring, but it's a very active network. We've got consistently have 25, 30 people attending our monthly meetings, which are open kind of sharing practice meetings. In relation to the research, and you're absolutely right, Joe, that actually there's lots of conflicting stuff coming through, and I think what came through. So we ran a survey with funding from Advance HE in 2024. Then in 2025 we got some funding from Carnegie to repeat that survey, but within Scotland, and we and the things that came through echoed some of the things like that have come through the PEPI reports, but with a little bit more nuance. And actually, if you want to, there's a great post by Michael Webb from JISC that actually compares both surveys, and I think some of it is around the wording of the questions and stuff, because and also I would argue as well, maybe HEPI has a little bit more of a boosterism aspect to it because it's funded by Cortex. So there's that, an AI company is funding it. So and I think what's happening, and I think we ran some focus groups as well, specifically with creative art and creative industry students and staff last summer as well, just to kind of see where that was, because that's one of those industries that that's changing very rapidly, along with so many others. But the position of the students and stuff is actually quite interesting. They're getting quite entrenched. They're getting quite anti-generative AI. Whereas actually the staff are a little bit more knowledgeable about the reality of things that are happening. So there's this real disconnect and this kind of polarization. I think that's what I would call it, that there's a kind of groups of people, that sort of 92% of students using AI, that big broad headline is not something we saw. We saw that breaking down into, 92% maybe have engaged with it to some extent, but about a third of students don't want to engage with it and object to engaging with it. Whereas there'll be a third who maybe will be very much kind of into using generative AI. And then there's a third in the middle that's a little bit in between. And actually that's replicated across staff. We looked at staff, professional services, as well as academic staff. What we did find is that actually there's a kind of a little bit of a backlash against stuff now, particularly about staff using it. So students are much more likely to say that staff should not be using it for certain things. Now, this really goes, I've been looking at things like the Teacher-Matic pilot in JISC, for example, and how that's working. And I think some of it is around myth busting. Some of it's about the messaging around certain things, about what some of the tools or what the responsible use might look like. And I think people are getting a little bit kind of polarized. And then there's that disconnect, like you say, Joe, between actually what's happening out in practice and what are we preparing our students and our graduates for. So I think there's a lot of kind of difference in there. What I would say is that just in relation to the kind of updating the link, we've got a very rudimentary website, as you'll see, but we've got the report that we brought out ourselves in relation to the more recent data is available on that link that I've just popped into the chat there. But yeah, it's a very vibrant network. Happy to kind of talk to anybody or bring anybody in. We've made a few kind of conversations with Data Lab, but we haven't quite made it to the point of kind of having a proper meeting with them yet. I think AI Alliance, we had conversations with them earlier on. Again, I think there was some changes there that we haven't quite caught up with who the recent people are. We've had conversations with SQA, QAA as well, Advance HE, JISC, Sue's been in and out as well. To us and the SFC. And the other thing actually that we did, we have had a version of our statement of principles, which you'll be aware of from last year. We've had a version of that adapted by University Scotland for sector wide. So that was happened earlier this year. And that's kind of actually looking not just at learning and teaching. The network is looking at learning and teaching. So it's not our remit. So we worked with them to adapt it to kind of look at all Scottish university higher education activities that extend beyond just learning and teaching, and they've adapted a version of that, and we're just awaiting them to publish it on our website. So we'll have some information about that going out, I think, through Wonk HE and QA as well as University of Scotland as well. So we are getting that out there, and we're always just flying the flag for open education as well, just trying to help people understand what a Creative Commons license is. And actually we've had we've also been reused as well by British Columbia government as well. So they've got a website that they have adapted part of our principles as well. So it's looking pretty good. And we've got institutions as well adapting it, and colleges, and bringing it into their policies and so on. So that's a nice piece of work that's in train, that it's now out in the wild, and people are using it. So that's just a quick update from me. Thanks, Joe.
A brilliant update. Just before I'll bring in Dinser in a minute, he's got a question. But what I'm hoping to do in June, we're having a more hybrid face-to-face at Stirling and online, and I've chatted to Rosemary, and if you have a think about maybe a half-hour workshop or something, we'll bring it up, because I'm also kind of aware that and it's a really good way of practice that you've got named contacts in all of the institutions, but probably doing something that brings your work to, because some of your named contacts will keep their information up their jumper. So doing something, and then we can push out across colleges and universities again would be good. So there's an open invite, and I'm in contact with Rosemary about that, but we'll do that. Dinser, do you want to ask a question? You get your hand up.
Some question maybe, but also some comments shortly, if it's possible. So, hello everyone, I'm Dinçer, Learning Technology Manager from University of Edinburgh, and I'm working with Center for Open Learning and School of Education. I see some familiar faces here, Jason, Phil, Tracy, so nice to see you. I met with Sarah just to say to Louis, so I was in one of her presentations in a conference, so I met with her, and I learned that University of Edinburgh opted out to join this research project, so there is no data from University of Edinburgh, right? Am I correct on that? On the staff and student attitudes and perceptions research.
Sarah, so this is Sarah Preston from Aberdeen, University of Aberdeen. I'm not aware that Edinburgh actually opted out. So there was various ways they may have not asked for the aggregate data for their own use. So we offered that out, aggregated data from individual institutions. We offered it that anonymous data to give it back to institutions. So it may be that. I think we had responses from staff and students across every single university in Scotland, but I can go back and check the data set for you.
Yeah, as far as I know, so that was my discussion with Sarah. So
it may have been also the publicity, because we did ask people to publicize it internally as well. So maybe I think we had difficulty finding the right person to do that within institutions.
Yeah, so what I heard from Sarah is like University of Edinburgh said, we have an ongoing discussion internally, so at the moment we won't participate or something like that. So that's what I heard. So maybe you can double check, I don't know.
Sure.
So I think it was a bit unfortunate because it's like the biggest university in Scotland and you don't have much data, then I think it was a kind of limitation. So I think this topic is not much being discussed, I think, between staff or students. That's my observation openly, and I think this survey is great in terms of triggering that discussion. So what I did is for Center for Open Learning, I convinced people to run this survey in the school. So in 1 month we will. So I thanks to Sarah, she sent me the questions, and I just put them in a format. So for staff, we'll use these questions and try to create a conversation around it. Thank you for your efforts, but I think it's also difficult to, like, if each school tries to do these things on their own, create things, etc. So I think it's not probably very efficient, but so what I try to say is there is a lot going on. Maybe there is different views, but we don't have much insight on how people approach this, how much they use. So we have mostly assumptions. So from my point of view, I don't know how academic staff is using, how students are using. We don't have data. We don't have discussion. So yeah, it's a great initiative, I think, and yeah, if I have any results, I'm happy to share with you too, with the project. Thank you.
Fantastic. And
Sir,
yeah, just say we do have it's open data sets that we have. So, obviously those will be made available.
and I think you're absolutely right, Denser. I think there's a lack of confidence on both sides of teaching staff opening a conversation about how I use AI or how I don't use AI, and encouraging students to open up and have these conversations. It seems to be a lot of people's dirty secret just now. Uh, that's the feeling I get a wee bit. There's also, again, JISC have been doing a lot of good work, again, and have updated some of their survey materials to reflect AI as well. I think it's just closed. I think it closed yesterday. They were looking at the digital transformation framework and how it would be how it should be updated. Again, I pushed that round, and I can see Kenji. Kenji, you've been running some excellent workshops, I think, for further education staff. How's that been going?
Sorry, yeah. Um, yeah, we have been running a lot of workshops and talking with some of the strategic teams about the application of AI. And we've also contacted a few universities and done some work there just to learn more about where some of our students are heading. Um, a few things, I suppose. Uh, I think. I think in a lot of the surveys, they miss the detail about how AI is used. And I agree with the comment about the HEPI survey. When you look at the actual question and the potential return, you get no idea of frequency or actual use or application. Um, when we talk to businesses that come into the college that sometimes share their application of AI in the work, it's really limited, and it ties in with like the MIT studies that show that there's little practical change or improvements in productivity due to AI at the moment. People are still feeling their way. The majority of people who use AI genuinely just ask it questions in a Google-like sort of way. The notion of putting your data sets in place and getting workflows where AI is actively, whether as a as an agent or in some more prescriptive way, and entering into workflows, that's really limited. There's a few pocket examples, and people are experimenting at the moment, but nothing really that sophisticated. And in a way, when we talk to lecturing staff and also professional services, we say like now is really the opportunity because pretty much most people are still trying to work out where it fits. And there's also the infrastructure question around how data is organized in your institution. Um, I would say it's a small minority that have data that is organized in such a way you can act upon it. That's a big thing. Um, we are running these diagnostic sessions with strategic teams, talking through some of the staff perceptions of how AI is being impacted, and also digital more generally as well. And it's to complement, it's designed to run against the digital elevation tool from JISC and really complements just their idea. But one of the significant issues, and we did some work with the University of Strathclyde as well, is over the last 3 years, since AI kind of emerged, and then you had those kind of initial knee-jerk reactions in the beginning of 2023, all of the policy and guidance has been pretty negative. All the stuff that you don't do with AI, these are the limitations, these are the problems. Um, Genuinely, when you read through some of the guidance, you feel like a bad person for typing in a prompt that somehow that you're using the world's energy, that labor has been exploited to go through the guard railing of all these different models. You feel like if I touch the computer, I'm literally contributing to the badness in the world. And it only really recently and we see the encouragement generally in industry, etc., about where AI is going and what it will do for the world. It's only recently that universities and education, which are generally, a little bit behind the rest of the world, are starting to talk about, well, here are potential positive applications of AI. Here's how you should or could or positively use the technology. But it's so hard to push against that cultural mindset that has been created over the last 3 years about don't do it. It's bad. And you see that reflected out of the kind of fear that still exists from those initial steps that we took in policy. Now, I'm going to have to duck out in the next 10 minutes because I'm running another session at 11. But I definitely I need to catch up with the Science thing. Louise, I need to talk and try to bring more colleges into your sessions because I think that we can help with that too. There's a lot of active discussion. I think there is a lot of potential, but so much work to be done.
That's super, Kenji. Thank you. And just well, before you go, if you go in 10 minutes, if you have a look at these other development things, because I'm also aware I didn't catch up with you earlier in the year. If there's anything else, obviously that's missing from that Padlet with
Yeah,
developments in the
sure.
sector, please add in. Okay. Well, as anticipated, AI has sort of dominated. So I'm gonna rattle through the other bits here, and we'll move on to two stars and a wish in a minute or two. So one of the columns I've added here is open education and OER, and and again, just some headlines. First of all, this is the 25th anniversary of Creative Commons. I haven't got my Creative Commons T-shirt on today. You'll be glad to hear because I do dust it out, bring it out of the cupboard. It's still an amazing thing, and it's still an amazing thing that so few institutions really are using it or have an understanding of it or all of these things. I know you guys do, but I still think there's a lot more needing done in the Creative Commons space. And I know Lorna is on. I think Lorna and I are planning to write a wee short paper or something on Creative Commons in Scotland, particularly around Open Scotland and our engagement with CC over the years. They've updated their website and done all of these kind of things. I just put a link to actually the new Creative Commons website. But if you have a wee Google, you'll see all the things they're doing for their 25th anniversary. Under open education and OER, too, again, some people might not be aware, but I've spoken a few times to actually European and German and various other audiences, and it's principally because Open Scotland and Lorna and I are on the OER world map. And if you have a look at the OER world map, there's still lots of good things happening in Scotland. That aren't on the OER world map. So every chance I get, I promote the OER world map. Did disappear for a spell, but it's back up and running. Really, thanks to a lot of work that happens inside Germany. But I just think there's just so much good practice in Scotland that just isn't there, and I'll explain why that's significant in a minute or two. So if you're not on the OER World Map, get on the OER World Map. Louise, I think, again, the fact that Skating's work is there and open and all of these things, that'll be a great thing to add to the OER World Map. OER Open Education Week, we put a cheeky wee post out about, again, alts. I should maybe have had that in the alt headlines, but thankfully for alts, continued support for open. And and again, you can see there's Edinburgh University saying, "What did you and or your institution do for Open Education Week?" And I just put that headline up as a cheeky thing because we all promoted Open Education Week like mad. I was scanning to see what did institutions across Scotland do for Open Education Week. Edinburgh University stands out by a mile, and again, there might be other bits that maybe College Development Network did something, maybe somebody else did, maybe other institutions did things, but it was really hard to find. And I think that's a challenge that we need to bring back to the sector. The sector talks about in tertiary terms and in other planning terms, they talk about collaboration and working together and doing all of these things. But when you actually look for it, and particularly around open education, it's still pretty scant. The landscape hasn't really changed that much. And again, in terms of why all of this is important about getting on the OER world map, about collaboration, the tertiary sector, and all of these kind of things, is it's worth drawing everybody's attention again to Scottish Government digital strategy. Because we won a big victory. We won a big victory at the end and the beginning of this year. And I'm going to get Lee Dunn to come along to the next alt gathering in June, because Lee Dunn shaped a Scottish Government digital strategy, and there's a link to it and bits and pieces in there. And it's got quite a narrow focus. It's basically saying that where organisations are publicly funded are creating digital training materials around digital literacy, that these materials should be appearing with an open license. But that to me means that basically, lots of colleges, lots of universities are all producing lovely internal training materials and things to get their staff up to speed with AI and lots of other good digital skills. All of that should be pushed out and shared. And I think institutions need to start thinking about it now. What it says in the policy is this has got to start in 2027. Now that's just next year. So there's a great lever there for moving on open education in Scotland. And I'm very grateful that Lee Dunn, who's worked around the sector and worked in private industry as well, but now with the Scottish Government, knew about Open Scotland, was paying attention, and has woven this into what is now government policy, which is great. But we've been here before with the Funding Council and various other bits and pieces where open got mentioned and then there's been no follow up. So the proof's in the pudding. Keith, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, if that's all right, Joe, just to come in really briefly and sort of linking kind of OER to AI. I don't know if other colleagues are finding this, but I see that we're starting to talk about it in the sector. At UHI, we've had for a few years now a framework for the development of open education practices, which Lorna was involved in helping us with at the very early stages of trying to think about what that might look like. And it took our efforts there took a wee bit of a kind of battering during the lockdown period, but since then we've been trying to get back on track with all things open and trying to develop our infrastructure around open and practices and so forth. And we've got a GAI policy and guidance, which is hopefully at least semi-sensible and kind of, to some extent sort of based on ethically informed, permissive use of kind of AI by staff and students. But we're really finding these two things clashing at the moment. Our AI policy stresses open first. Look at what's available openly before you start using AI to create resources. Look at what's available in our own institutional repository. We're really struggling to fly the flag for open practices and particularly using and reusing OER in the face of the convenience of GAI. It's a real struggle. And I don't know if other colleagues are kind of finding that kind of tension as well. I mean, we're still at quite an early stage in trying to push open and use of OER, but there's many things in place that should be supporting that. But yeah, we're really, in the face of the convenience of GAI, we're really struggling to get folk to think about open practices and open resources. It's a real struggle.
I think that's fair. And again, that actually highlights that friction, doesn't it? Because you say that teaching staff, rather than looking at open materials, they're busy working creating learning materials using AI. There's just an interesting bit of
Yeah.
people are some, not all, some of them are just like Kenji said, using it like Google search engines, but there are staff that are actually away doing creating quite interesting things using AI.
Yeah.
My answer to that would be getting the virtuous loop of, even if you've created something quite interesting using AI, how you then republish it and then share it so that somebody else doesn't have to go in and make it again.
Yeah, I think so. But also, I think a real concern here, and Helen Beetham's made this point really well. The kind of unless you're really good at prompting, actually, what you're going to get back from AI can be quite superficial. We know it can be inaccurate, and so forth. Things that colleagues have produced and made available openly, that's usually been done with some rigor and some decent level of design, and the resources have been produced. So the quality of OER, I think, is often going to far outstrip what you might generate from GI, unless you're really good at generating things with GI. So yeah, I just saw that Lorna's got her hand up. Apologies, Lorna, I was talking over you there. I just saw your hand. So yeah, I don't know. I just wonder if it's something that within our group, and maybe at the June event, we can find a space to have a bit more discussion on, perhaps.
No, perfect. I think that would be really useful. I think that would be good. Anybody else? I can't see hands up because I'm on my screen
Right.
just then.
Can I jump in
Lorna's
there,
coming
Joe?
in, yeah.
Oh, Lorna, sorry. Lorna, in you come.
Yeah, it was just, totally agree with Keith that, and certainly one of the things that we've been thinking quite a bit about in the OER service in Edinburgh is exactly what you're talking about, Keith, from the perspective of sustainable computing, because that's a bit of a lever, and it's something that quite a lot of universities are thinking quite hard about, given the rising cost of all sorts of aspects of learning technology, from whether it's the fees you pay for your LMS provider to cloud storage. These things are starting to become very, very, very expensive, and of course the use of AI is pushing that cost up. So institutions are starting to talk about sustainable computing, and I think OER has a very important role to play there, because like you said, why would you go and create something from scratch at considerable environmental and economic cost when something potentially better actually already exists? And I think, again, it's part of this, there's a digital skills aspect to this. We need, we still need to help people to find resources that are going to be useful to them. And one of the things we've been talking, the OER service in Edinburgh has recently moved from the Education Design and Engagement Division into the Digital Skills and Training Division, which is quite an interesting move for us. And we've been talking to colleagues there about the possibility of actually developing some training about scenarios where it might be quite valuable and legitimate to use AI, and scenarios where actually you're better using open education and looking for existing resources. So I think that's something that we very much want to think about over the coming year. And the other thing that we're doing is we're updating our OER policy. So all our learning and teaching policies in Edinburgh get updated regularly on a 3-year basis, and that's just something that happens. We're also looking at updating our learning technology policy. But in terms of the OER policy, one of the things we're doing is we're adding some wording about AI, copyright, and OER, because that's a really, really, really messy, tricky space. And the government reports on copyright and AI has not really clarified things. So this is something that we've been doing quite a bit of research on. And we're hoping that we will be in a position within the OER service to put out some guidance about that interface between copyright Creative Commons licensing and AI over the course of the next year. So that's, that's two areas that we're doing quite a bit of thinking in. We're not going to be at the OER conference, unfortunately. I'm still unable to travel, but yeah, hopefully we can sort of, if we've got anything up on the website, we can flag it up to everyone. And we'll certainly let you know when the new policy is approved as well. It should be going up within the next couple of days, I think.
So sorry, I just can't find the button to raise my hand. It's been a while since I've been on Zoom, and I'm ducking out in a second. But the last thing I just wanted to say, so we were looking at AI in connection with OER, and so some of the work that we've seen done in colleges, also looking at local models running off your device, and also recently some really edge case models that you can put on fairly not low end phones, but phones that run a couple of years ago. One of the aspects coming out of Bolton College 5 or 6 years ago was the idea of the kind of RAG aspect of preloading a data set, usually of your learning materials, and then creating a chatbot to reference that first to respond to questions. And we looked at some examples in the States and a couple in the Netherlands where they had used OER textbooks. So those publications, especially in the States and in the school sector, where they'd sort of devised that whole set of curriculum textbooks, and then using those because they are open in nature and creating those RAG domains for them. So you could have local AI models respond directly to students with a kind of protected sense of information that you could be reasonably assured that it contained the right information. And that's a real potential for the open license, working with AI rather than kind of separating or pushing one to one place or the other. AI is coming regardless. But if you have a core set of textbooks or information that are openly licensed, it gives you much more flexibility to look at implying them in a local sort of edge use case, which deals with a lot of the energy consumption and data sharing sort of worries. I like solutions that just take what's there and use them rather than necessarily pushing against the tide. I definitely have to go, but we'll be keen to catch up with you later, Joe, and have a chat.
And
Okay,
that was
thanks.
a really good comment to come in with, because that's my experience too. And I was at a thing yesterday with IT people, and we were talking about student induction at college land, and I built an AI agent to do that 2.5, 3 years ago, and it worked really well. And all we did is we took all our FAQs, all the things that students ask questions on in the first 2 weeks of college. And at that stage, I used a tool called POE, and we built it, and everybody likes it. And then, I can't say this, and then it got blocked. It got blocked by IT, and what I'd hoped was that by now they would have built something similar within Copilot, but they've not given anybody the rights to run anything like that within the college. So we haven't got that. So it hasn't moved forward. But there are fixed bits of knowledge where you can create things, and the tool won't hallucinate, and it just speeds up the process. And that was boring stuff. It wasn't learning. It was just taking FAQs from induction week to smooth students in induction. Anyway, I'm off on one. I'm going to move to the last column, which was the other stuff, and I'll go through it quite quickly. Other things that I picked up. And some of it I've got concerns about, but that's probably my own political acts. SFC's doing College Sector of the Future, a work stream, and when you have a look at it, and we've just talked about tertiary, the College Sector of the Future work stream looks to me very much like that old funding council trick of colleges, you've got big problems, let's have lots of meetings where you can all sort out among yourselves. And actually, I don't think that sorts out the problems across further and higher education. I think it needs to be much more collective. But it's worth having a look at that they're setting up this future work stream, and again, things like open education or collaboration and all these things just doesn't really feature in any of the documents that pushed out. I think it's probably a recipe for further deaths by 1,000 cuts. I fear. JISC have got an interesting document that came out a wee while ago now, a manifesto for tertiary education in Scotland, which again I think it's probably more useful in that it does encourage, it mentions open, and it does all, and it addresses the tertiary sector. Now out of date, but I always found this tool really good. I did procure virtual learning environments and things, and USAIS, I've just finishing a review of the VLE specification toolkit. I used that when I was procuring a system, and it's great. It's being updated. It's a useful tool, and that's that DataFest link. And just before I move on to 2 stars and a wish. Anything else, folks? Anything other, or anything under any of the other headlines? Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I think the Just Manifesto's been really useful. Anything else that MD would add to this? Because what I'll do is I'm going to reflect all of this back to Big Alt, and I'll push it out to reflect the conversations that we've had today.
Just one last thing from me, Joe. Again, the other area that we're working within the OER service in Edinburgh is open textbooks. So that's something that we've not done a huge amount of work in that area in the past. We published one prototype open textbook on fundamentals of music theory a couple of years ago, which was actually really successful, but we're now putting a bit more time and effort into that, and we're looking at creating open textbooks from some of our MOOC materials, but also from other sort of projects that have been funded around the university, and student created resources, and so that's something that we're hoping to sort of build up more activity in, and we did just last week publish a new open ebook on a toolkit for interdisciplinary learning and teaching, and I'll put the link in there.
That's good, because when I was looking at some of the links, I looked at links we chatted about last year as well, and I'm actually there's a UK Ireland open textbook initiative. They were actually, and they usually come to the OER conferences, and they were at last year's OER conference, and they were trying to refresh their network. So I get regular emails from them, and I'll add that to the links as well. I kind of looked at it and I thought, well, that's not contemporaneous, but it still is. And there's a link to join it, and a couple of times I've had goes at pushing it around really colleges in Scotland, but when I've been pushing it around, people either go, "What's that got to do with us?" or actually more usefully, "Oh, we're in that already." But it's the same challenge. We're in it already, but we can't get teaching staff to look at open textbooks. That basically the barrier goes up because the staff still want the library to order the book for the library, and they're not prepared to look at open textbooks. So there's still challenges there. Jason, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so I'll start on that point there. I've added the link to the JISC Sula pilot, which is ongoing, and that's using AI as a discovery tool for OER. And there's the blog post there about Coventry's positive experiences, though we haven't quite got to the end of the pilot yet, and something hopefully will come back from that. But actually, I just wanted to reflect on Tuesday, where I was at the QAA Northern Ireland Enhancement Conference, and I was on a panel with that. The whole thing was a little bit AI orientated, but actually, one of the things that did come about from that, and from the quality enhancement side, is the focus on, as we all know, technology there is there to solve problems and take opportunities. And actually being at a conference which wasn't about the technology. It was about the problems and challenges and opportunities. I think it was quite refreshing and do that. And we all know that this is the case, but especially my gripe at the moment is an awful lot of talk of AI isn't actually about what we're trying to solve with it or what opportunities we're trying to take with it. It's about a technology, and we all know that starting from the technology is never a great place to start in that. So just reflecting on that, partly because actually QA Northern Ireland is pretty much QA Scotland, having gone for a day out to Northern Ireland, or indeed there's some colleagues in Wales and England as well contributing as well. But it might be an opportunity for us in Alt Scotland to work a little bit more closely, and I know we all do actually with QA, but there might be an open door there.
Well, QAA on my invite list. They're quite interesting because I've sent a couple of emails. They pass the parcel a lot, Jason, but I'm hoping to get somebody along from QAA to the next event in June.
They have had staffing difficulties, and they've gone through, I don't know how many heads or directors of devolved nations in the past few years, so for one reason or another. So yes, Deborah McFarlane's still there though, and so she's a good one to contact.
Perfect. I'll have another go at that. I'll maybe come back to you, Jason, offline, because I've had difficulty getting them to engage. Even can you put Deborah's name there just in the chat, and because that'll just help me. Okay, folks. So we're at that bit where we're going to move from that kind of round robin of what's happening to the kind of 2 stars and a wish part. And I had a go, and you'll see actually the things I've highlighted, and these are things I've been doing over really over the last year. So to my 2 stars, again very AI focused. I've been using an MD Markdown file when I've been using, and again, full disclosure, I use a lot of tools, but I use only free tools. I again, boy from Paisley Road, used to dealing with adult learners and all these kind of things. With no conscience could I ever recommend to someone go and pay for, go and buy a system or any of these things. So how do you get the most out of the free tools? And one of the ways you get the most out of the free tools is having on your laptop or your desktop a .md file that basically says who I am, what I want you to do, all of these other bits and pieces, and it works really well. It means that when you're doing your prompts and things, you get back quite quickly what you want without asking lots and lots of questions, and without using up all your free tokens. So it's Paisley Road street chat for how you exploit these systems, and don't suddenly get to the juicy bit where it says you've used up all your free questions and you have to come back 24 hours or wait 6 hours. A .md file really improves things. Okay, so that's my first star. My second star is the colleges in Glasgow offered free courses around vibe coding. And a way back in the last century, I used to do quite a lot of coding. Some of you in the know will know that I built websites and various other things, and I pushed out my own teaching materials as websites and things in the 1990s. So that was when I was as a teaching and a development tool and ways to create open education materials and all of these kind of things. And again, it's not for everyone. It's not something I would say every teacher needs to learn how to use vibe coding, but it is so useful. And I went back and I spoke to colleagues that teach computing, that teach things like that. And at the moment, vibe coding doesn't feature much in any of the HQA curriculum or any of these kind of things, and you're like, oh gosh, because it really does change around. And again, I spoke to people in the computer industry who, of course, are all doing vibe coding like mad, and saying things like you don't really have to understand a lot of languages now because vibe coding will do it won't do it all, but it does that bit of getting you to prototype things really quickly, so you can then have something prototyped and then go and speak to proper developers. It's just mind blowing. And then my wish, and I was or speaking at an exhibition thing in Glasgow yesterday with lots of IT staff. It was a conference run by, and I always get them wrong. I'm going to call them Mediascape. Really for all of the installers and things that install lecture capture and screens and all of these things in colleges and universities. And I was chatting to lots of IT staff, and I said to them, one of the things I keep hearing at JISC meetings, at various other online forums, where people are all busy sharing practice and being good in a forum like this, talking about all the good resources that their institution has or their college has, and then somebody says, "Oh, that's great. Can you share that policy on whatever it is, or your policy on students' use of AI, or your policy, your staff development policy?" And what I hear over and over again is it's all on SharePoint, unfortunately. It's all on SharePoint, unfortunately. In other words, it's a in a closed loop. And when I was talking to all the IT guys, I said, "Look, I keep hearing this," and they said, "But basically, all you have to do is talk to your IT team, and in an education instance of SharePoint, all you have to they can enable external sharing, and that will allow people to share things." And I said, "But does that come at a cost?" And they said, "No, your educational license allows all of that, but." What I think is lots of the system doesn't do this, and then I came back and had a dig, and it is a wee bit of security concern still about doing this, but I just want to stop hearing that when I'm at events and doing things. So that's one of my wishes, and it comes back to open education and things about. Really about how we change up the system. So I don't hear in big national meetings that we've got this and we've done this and here's a PowerPoint presentation on it. And what you really want to see is the actual policy. And they say, well, it's all in SharePoint, unfortunately. So I'd like that changed. But there is a route to changing it. But we need to figure out. I mean, again, it comes back to that bit about local agents and doing all of these kind of things. The institutions can do, but they need a bit more confidence to get there. So that's my star one, star two, and a wish. And I've got the ball rolling. I'm going to stop talking for 15 minutes. I'm going to go and make a cup of tea, and you could go and make a cup of tea as well. But while you're making a cup of tea, what I'd like you all to think about is what are your 2 stars and what's your wish? Is that okay, folks? Okay, I'll put a wee message just in case anybody else does join us that we're pausing for you to go and think about your 2 stars and a wish and add it to the screen, please. Thanks very much, folks. I'll see you in a minute too. Okay, I'll call up 2 stars and a wish again. Give me a second. I'll go back to share. Cool. Wait. Oh, so everybody's scored. I've got some things. So thanks, Lorna, for sharing, and everybody else. Jason, what are your 2 stars and a wish? Come on, get them in. We were nattering there. Lorna, do you want to start by talking us through your star and a wish?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure thing. I submitted 2 stars as well. I don't know where that one's
Oh,
gone.
did you?
I cheated slightly and I've just shared things I'd already shared in the chat. But the first one is given the conversations we're having about AI, It's some useful guidance created by colleagues in the library at Edinburgh University about how to attribute and cite the use of Gen AI tools in academic work. So it's specifically for academic work, but I think there's some really useful information there about anyone who wants to attribute and cite the use of AI. So that's my first star. Did you get my second one, Joe?
I can't see it. I can't see it on the board.
Oh, that's weird. I'll add it again. The second one that I tried to add was the ebook that I mentioned earlier on, the Toolkit for Interdisciplinary Learning and Teaching, which we published last week on Edinburgh Diamond, which is the university's open ebook service. So I'll add that. And my wish was, again, basically just what the point that Keith raised earlier, which is, I think, more thoughtful and informed use of AI, and an understanding of when you could just as it would be just as equally valid to use existing resources rather than actually having to create new AI generated resources just because it's cool or it's fun or whatever. There may actually be existing resources out there that you can use.
I think that's absolutely spot on. And Phil, I see you've got back in. You can hear us now, and you've added a star. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, it was just earlier this week. I attended this webinar with the excellent Phil Dawson. He regularly crops up talking about assessment. I always find his talks very pragmatic and practical, and but also really well grounded in pedagogic research. So quite hard to argue with. um, yeah, it's worth watching. Just full of all sorts of useful advice and context around the impact of AI on really good impact of AI on assessment practices. I haven't got around to writing it in the wish yet, but my wish, if I get round to writing it, would be that the advent of AI really draws people up short to pay greater attention to what they're doing in assessment. I think a lot of assessment practices are very thoughtless, and people tend to. I was having a conversation yesterday, which I think is very typical. People write learning outcomes not because they're actually trying to think about what the learning outcomes might be, but because we've got regulations, university regulations that say you need to write a learning outcome if you're going to have a course. And I had a conversation with this academic, and he had no idea what purpose a learning outcome served, and why we even had them. And I just think that's so typical. And we had to have that conversation before we could talk about designing a rubric. And there were so many things around rubric design that we talked about, where again, he was doing a rubric because he'd been told he needed to have a rubric, but he had no concept of the clarity required in terms of assessment. So that whole narrative, I think a lot of the problems that we've got around the impact of AI on assessment is because people don't think these things through. Assessment is very second, third, fourth thought in course design, and I really wish that AI shakes things up and makes people pay much greater attention to what on earth they're trying to do with assessment. That's my little soapbox.
No, I'm with you 200%, and I think some of my colleagues have heard me on this. So I started off as an English teacher, and an English and history school teacher, and we're still asking the same questions. Explain the tragedy in Romeo and Juliet, but because that's what they've always asked. But nobody's asked the question about what do you actually want the student to learn. Where's the, and now AI's arrived. It just throws such a sharp light on. I mean, it's academically lazy. It's all kinds of laziness, all coming into it. And we just need to up our game. And I actually, again, having done HQA, where it was learning outcomes and performance criteria and all of these things, but all designed around national occupational standards. So you've got a purpose. You know why. And again, so English isn't about English literature. It's about a range of communication skills you want the candidate, the learner, to develop, and how you're going to do that. And if you look at it that way, then you can change up and actually evidence that people have actually learned, not just filled up buckets with explain the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet, for God's sake, but it's still stuck with that. And no, absolutely 100%. Jason, you've added a few things. Do you want to chat us through?
Yes, so one might complain that I'm kind of promoting JISC about this, but actually, so starting off with digital skills support and what was said, one of the nuggets and gems, or indeed stars, of JISC that's underused still is the building digital capability discovery tools. So there's sets for students, there's sets for staff, it's self evaluation, but backed by a curated set and hundreds of resources there as well. And institutions can add their own resources into it as well. It's free to use for colleges. There is some payment for universities, but it's covering costs. It's there. And as JISC is owned by you as well, if there's anything you don't like about it, then tell us and we'll look at changing it as well. But even the data that we get out of it does benefit the sector because we put that back in again to recognise the sort of areas in which staff and students indeed are needing help indeed. So if you haven't looked at it, or if your institution isn't using it, or if it's one of those things that's been signed up for but nobody is really promoting, then you might want to have a look again at building digital capability. It really should be more of a jewel in the crown than it is. So that's plug one, perhaps. And then
Before you go to point two, Phil's put his hand up. I don't know if it's a question on this specifically, Phil.
No, it wasn't a question. I'll wait until after Jason's finished talking because I had a star too.
No more. Phil, Jason, on you go.
Okay then, and briefly again, just mentioning just AI support and community because there's an awful lot of that. But I think the star amongst it is perhaps the maturity tool, trying to move the conversations on, recognizing institutional readiness, and it's been alluded to a number of times. And Kenji put it very well, is that it's all very well typing stuff into Google-like search engines for answers, but exploring what transformation could look like for the benefit of learners and staff and society, I think, is the key part of it. And it's simple things, and again, it's an obvious one, but the other day in Northern Ireland, I was reminded by Judy Williams, that some of you might know, in Queen's University Belfast, that she is severely dyslexic, but generative AI rather than generative AI just makes such a difference in her getting stuff presented to her in the way she needs, and that's a big area. Anyway, the whole AI support, for me, the gem of that is the community. It's vibrant, it's got an awful lot of answers and sharing of experience and questions in it, and so a great place to go. And very briefly, my wish is that, we've got some wonderful people on the call today, but it'd be great if we could have had more of the wonderful people. So apologies for the very cheesy AI generated image, but I thought I'd go for cheese. I will invest some time in trying to get people across our community in Scotland more involved, because this is a great thing, and we know learning technology and learning technologists need support across our sector. So I will make a concerted effort to get more people signed up and along.
Here's Jason. I think that's really important, and we'll maybe target that event in June actually again, which is hybrid. So some people come to Stirling, and some people will do it online. But again, I'm hoping in the background, QA, Education Scotland, various other things, that kind of policy thing, which might not excite everybody, but I think some of the stuff around AI that we'll get Louise's colleagues to do should excite everybody. So we'll get something sorted out and do a bit more promotion on that. Now, Mary, you've got your hand up, Mary McVeigh.
I do. I've lowered my hand now. It really is my comment for Jason about the digital capability and the digital skills. We do promote it. Most of my teaching is level 1, and there's something that we've built into our induction this year. But a lot of the feedback from students was it was a bit overwhelming. Like there was lots of sets, and what do I do? And I'm really just looking for ideas on how to help them navigate through it. And I'd like it to be an iterative process, but what works well elsewhere. But any guidance on that would be really helpful because it's great resources, but it is just a lot in your face.
And we do have some advice as to how institutions can frame it to provide that support. I'll get back to you on that.
That's brilliant. Thank you. That was all. Thanks, Joe.
Super. And Phil, you've just added the second your second star. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, I don't know how widely available it is to the wider community, but I thought I'd flag it up because we were talking earlier about shadow AI use, and that there seems to be stuff going on that we're not aware of, and this group seems to be partly trying to address that. Certainly within Edinburgh University. They had the first meeting earlier this week, and I think 60 people turned up to it.
Wow.
All really keen to find out more about who's doing what and how we can support each other. It wasn't recorded. I think it's probably best that these things aren't in that particular instance. But people were admitting that they're, academics, for instance, that know nothing about computing wouldn't recognize what a line of code means if it was spelled out to them, but are developing apps using AI and using those apps on university systems with no knowledge of the impact that it's having or its security implications or any of that sort of thing, but desperate to achieve whatever it is that they're trying to achieve from a research point of view or from a discovery point of view, and just looking for support, but not knowing where they can safely ask for that support. So this group looks like it's going to be really valuable in terms of loads of people coming together with various different levels of skill and knowledge, being able to support each other with coming up with good practice, safe practice in the tertiary sector, basically. So I'm hoping that there'll be lots of good stuff comes out of it for wider use.
Really, really useful. And again, I think some of this reflects. I mean, I'm so ancient. I remember the beginning of the internet. I mean, again, so one of the guys I used to play football with, who was like an apprentice technician, IT technician at City of Glasgow College, is now the head of IT for Clyde College. So I caught up with him, and we had a good laugh about them coming to take away, because I programmed the first modem at Cardonal College, and eventually they came and took it away as they were putting a big network in and doing all these kind of things. So we shared lots of stories on all of that. But at that point, when the internet arrived, and academic computing kind of arrived, so many people kept things up their sleeves. I mean, I remember somebody that kept producing these amazing training manuals from Apple on an Apple computer, and I couldn't figure out how they did it. And eventually they showed me, and it was how to print screen. Basically all they were doing was they were going, on these early Apples, there was like 3 keystrokes you had to know in order to print a screen, which you then could put into, but they weren't going to tell anybody because it was their baby to make these kind of learning materials. And but it was a really exciting time, and I think some of the things that are happening just now, good and bad, are as exciting as that bit when the internet kind of arrives. So it's good to know that these kind of closed meetings are happening and people are trying to figure out a way through all of this. One of the things I didn't stick on the big slide, and haven't put into 2 stars and a wish, and I think they were quite controversial, but I'm sorry to see them go. The We Are Open co-op is coming to an end. If you don't know about the We Are Open co-op, I'll put a link, and you should go and have a look at some of the things that they did as a collective. But one of the We Are Open co-op, who is a real Doug won't, if he's watching this, he won't mind me saying this, a relatively controversial figure. But he's kind of running a one-man campaign at the moment against big corporate IT, and he's busy putting up lots of things about how to use AI, how to do everything with open source basically, and not use some of the big American corporate platforms. And some of the work's really interesting, and it's maybe worth some people having a look at. But again, I think it's part of this whole excitement around what's a big shake-up in sort of networked learning. My take, and again, some people might disagree with me, but it's probably worth not just look at Doug's work, but the work of other people in that We Are Open. We Are Open cooperative, and even how they founded their cooperative. And some of you will know Brian Mather's work. I mean, he did all the graphic stuff for them and things. I mean, I'm sorry to see it disappearing, because some of the stuff they did for Greenpeace and for various other things really amazing, actually. I'll put the link in, and I'll add it retrospectively. But I think it's just a very exciting time. Right, back to my Padlet. Wait. Oh, what have I done? What have I done? I've lost my Padlet. Give me a second. Wait. Excuse me while I fiddle about with my screens. What have I done? Wait. Give me a second. Wait. Here we are. So I'm looking down, see who else has added anything to 2 stars and a wish. Oh, Phil, you're coming in. I saw something using. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, do you want to come in and just chat about that, Phil, for a minute?
That was just yeah, I've been modifying some of my text in various documents to specifically put generative in front of AI, just to be clear. But I was reading something recently, and they were talking about AI ML as if everybody knew what it meant. And of course, I know perfectly well what AI ML means, or at least what it meant 20 years ago. um, it doesn't appear to mean that anymore. So these acronyms are getting bandied around. Um, AI/ML was actually the markup language that was used when Microsoft made Clippy available as a tool that you could customize your own web pages with. I don't know whether you remember that. On learning pages, you could have a little parrot,
Yeah.
and various other a little wizard and things like that. And it was the markup language for what it would say when you interacted with it. A blast from the past.
There's still rumours that Clippy is going to reappear. I see all of that. Yeah. And Fred, do you want to come in and just explain? Because you're absolutely right.
I'm
Fred,
a
on
bit of a cynic about AI as a term, because most of the stuff they're talking about is actually large language models, and large language models are stochastic parrots, as was put out by Timmy Gribeau before she was sacked by Google for pointing out that these things are dangerous and unethical and have lots of harms that aren't being recognised or being accounted for, especially in the global south. So I keep looking for actual proof that any of this actually works, and I've yet to see any proof that it A, makes you quicker. There's been studies out of MIT that say actually it makes you 20% slower. There's other studies that say it actually reduces your ability. So I am very much an AI cynic. I have seen neural networks used 20 years ago for basically hacking wireless networks, and that was actually really effective. And using neural networks to actually build models that actually learned how to follow certain principles. But again, it's not learning in the sense that humans learn, and there certainly isn't any intelligence as we know it as humans, because they're basically just models that manage to regurgitate lots of stuff, and lots of stuff that's being plagiarized off the internet. And all this, they're good at coding, they're good at using other people's code and putting it back as code. So I am very much not pro AI, especially as a term, and especially if you're not actually being accurate about what it actually means.
That's really useful, and that level of helpful cynicism is really useful in all of this debate. What I would say, and Kenji alluded to it, I had quite a lot of success of basically using. I mean, again, things that 3 or 4 years ago I would have had to bring a developer in to create a chat bot that spoke to our students and took them through or gave them induction information and helped the student, save the student time at finding things. I mean, that boring stuff of getting an accurate FAQ, frequently asked questions, and putting it into a closed model, and then using it with students, that actually really works. And it's not hallucinating. But it's not. Strictly speaking, you might say, well, that it's not. You can argue about whether it's AI or not, because basically what it's looking at is a fixed data set, and then seeing things nicely when it's only looking at a fixed data set. But that actually works, Fred.
But at what cost? At the moment, there is not a single company that is actually charging what it costs. I reckon from having read some research on this, that you would actually each have to pay $20,000 a month to actually cover the costs of these models. And you say it works. Have you made sure it's got safeguards? Breaking LLMs is extremely easy because they do not differentiate between data and commands. So there's been lots and lots of exploits where basically you can break any guardrails. And if you actually look at the code that was released by Anthropic by mistake, they've got lots of bits where the codes are saying, please don't leak this, please don't like that, don't mention goblins. And it's like, are you serious that this is proper intelligent computing? It's like, for me, it's like, no, that doesn't work at all.
Again, I think that's really useful because, again, the route I'm seeing just now, and it's that discussion I had yesterday with the IT people or IT folk from across the sector, is that Copilot can do lots of these things, and it's free at the moment under the educational license. But we all know that Microsoft is prone once you're bought in to hike their prices and things, Fred. So you're absolutely spot on in questioning all of this.
And Oracle has just basically posted a quarter where they lost something like $19 million. They are allegedly building data centers for OpenAI, which OpenAI hasn't got the money to pay for. We have got a very serious bubble that financially is not making any sense. And again, it's like there's an awful lot of risks, and there's also a lot of risk in terms of copyright and stuff. There's a whole lot of open source projects that I follow that have rejected AI completely because there is no guarantee that the code you provide through AI actually isn't copyrighted.
Well, there's a couple of things in what you've said, Fred, that would be good. Even that bit of having either as a star or a star two or a wish that would be useful to share with our broader constituency? Because I think these are incredibly important and valuable insights, Fred.
No, I do have a whole lot of various links and things which I can probably dig out and drop in, which might be more useful because again, the DARE Institute, which is mentioned there by Timothy Ribbo, has lots of useful information, especially about the harms that are currently ongoing with a lot of so-called AI tools. In fact, they had a recent talk recently about the harms that companies like Soma have created in places like Kenya by basically getting people to look at content which is frankly horrific and then labeling it so it doesn't turn up in our AI models. And there is no guarantee that that content won't appear. And seeing at least 3 of the big LLM models had to be pulled because they had child sexual abuse material, which they'd been trained on, and that material was coming out. And again, it's like, how can we trust these things when we don't know A, what's in them, and B, how they actually work?
Well, I mean, again, back to, and again, please forgive me, but the beginnings of the internet, if you remember, had this Wild West feel to it as well, you know. And I think there is a bit of Wild West going on. Can I ask, Fred, are you engaged with? We had Louise Drum earlier on and Scatton. Have you been feeding some of this in? Because a lot of what you've said, again, I think would be really useful as part of the kind of Scatton work, which is looking at ethical AI use.
No, I haven't been involved in that or seen much of that. It's just one of the things I just see an awful lot of stuff being pushed about AI and how good it is. And from my perspective, just from an ethical point of view, it is extremely unethical, or all large language models are extremely unethical. Microsoft sacked their ethical team shortly after Google had sacked Timit and her team. And these companies claim they're ethical, and they are not, from my book. But again, ethics is a personal thing. So what is acceptable to one person is not necessarily acceptable to another.
Yeah, but I think so, absolutely. But it'd be good. It would be good to hook you into Louise and Scatton. I think some of the stuff you're saying, some of the links, I think would be useful in that context.
Okay, I'll put something together that sort of hopefully puts a fairly coherent message on it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I am looking down to see if there's any other stars or wishes coming in. What we're getting from other people. I'm not seeing anything else on the board. I'll come back and eyeball people. Give me a tick. Oh, Keith, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I was trying to add some stuff, but it wouldn't let me add directly. It says that my first thing I've suggested is awaiting approval. So I don't know if it's a setting at my end.
It shouldn't be. There shouldn't be any. It's all unlocked, so it might be a setting.
It might be something at my end. I tried to post. I had a couple of things. The first thing I tried to post, it just says awaiting approval. I can see it at my end, but not on the.
I'll go in and have a look at my
don't know what's happening there. But it was just to say it was the directory of open access journals, which I've put into the chat as well. I find this a really useful resource. I run a session a couple of times a year for our postgraduate research students on how they can use digital and open resources to support their research. And the directory of open access journals has really come on in the last couple of years in particular. There's about 20-odd thousand journals, nearly 15,000 of which don't have any article processing fees. So you can also access journals in multiple different languages. So for our research students, I kind of recommend this as a way to maybe look at journals in their area that would allow them as postgrads to publish without the need for processing fees. But also where we've got research students that are maybe looking at very niche areas of research and they're not always going to find things in journals published in English language, then they'll often find things through searching the directory of open access journals, work that's been published in journals in other languages, which they can then translate. So for me, that kind of serves multiple purposes, and it's just a really good resource collection of kind of open access journals. Many of which have a really developmental nature as well. They kind of a lot of open access journals also share a kind of developmental ethos, and they'll support people trying to publish for the first time. So yeah, that was my first star. I don't know what I was going to do for the second one. I hadn't quite got that far.
I just in the background. I don't know how, but it did. I suddenly went in. It is open. I don't know if I've inadvertently at my end as I've been jumping through screens, click something, but the board's back open again. I did have to approve. I approved three posts there. So apologies, colleagues, if me jumping between Zoom and screens and things, I've managed to shut the sharing aspect of this, but it's back open again. And Keith, you can see now your post on DOAG has now arrived, and I did approve 3, so I'm going to look down and see what else has arrived. If I can see it over here, and I can't see. I'm just busy looking to see. It should be right at the top. Phil, your post arrived as well. No, that's good too. Jason, you put a comment in the policy finder bit.
Yeah, just to know that those who work in the library are dealing with the publications policy. If you use Open Policy Finder from JISC, that pretty much everyone does, then that does include data from the directory of open access journals. So hopefully that allows discovery a bit better as well.
No, that's super. And I'll add that to the links and bits and pieces as well. So it's now 12:04, and we were scheduled to go on to 12:30. I don't want to cut the discussion short because it's been really useful. Keith, you still got your hand up, I think.
Sorry, Joe, that's the legacy. Yeah, and that's also being too used to Teams that puts the hand down for you. Apologies.
No bother. No bother at all. I'm going to I'll add some links on the front page to the We Are Open legacy work, because again, I think just their approach as a cooperative, and they championed open education, and again on some of the concerns expressed around open models by Phil. Doug's doing some quite interesting work in Europe around different types of AI models, which is quite interesting as well. I find quite interesting, and I'll stick some links. I'll stick some links into that. Anybody want to add anything else under stars or wishes, and or on the original board that we stuck up when we did the kind of cross-sectoral review? I'll take silence as there's nothing else to come. I suppose just that bit of any other business. We're looking forward in terms of alt. We're looking forward to, and I should have the date to hand, but I haven't got it to hand. But it's on the alt website. The next Alt Scotland gathering will be a hybrid event. Thanks to Jason, hosted at Stirling University, but also online. And Jason, I know I've said to all, I need to get the email addresses of folks so we can set up teams for the next meeting at Stirling. I think that's correct, Jason. Yeah.
You can just create a Teams meeting, or else I can give you a Teams meeting link, whichever you prefer, and you can let people know that. So it's straightforward. You don't need.
Well, that's perfect. Well, 12th of June, I think that's correct. Yes, I think that's correct, Keith. So perhaps if you, Jason, if you set that up, I'll liaise with Alt and reflections on today, and I'm going to tease Alt that some of you who were at the start of the meeting knew that I had 2 or 3 apologies, but I didn't have a delegate list. I didn't know who was all going to arrive. So I'll liaise more closely with Alt around, because I also want to buy, again, Alt kindly are going to sponsor a scone or a tea and coffee on arrival, but we'll be buying our own lunch when we're at Stirling. But if it works the last way, I think we got about 40 people for that. But with only, I think we had about 16 people on site. So I've told Alt we won't break the bank in terms of hospitality. Any other further business, folks, before I close this meeting then? Oh, somebody's dogs want to walk.
That's mine. I've not had tennis ball for a while.
Oh, wow, Holly, wow. Gosh, that's interesting, Jason. Ooh, that's interesting. See if we can get somebody to do that. Well, actually, do you know, the the chief exec of Alt won't be there. Well, maybe see if we can persuade her to come in as a hologram. That might be quite interesting.
Great.
Is that the hologram that you had there last time we were there?
Yeah, it's the small
Yeah.
proto. We've been up staged by Forth Valley College, who, as a result of seeing that, have bought the full-size one for the Skills Transition Centre. So I'm still working on the budget to get a full-size one.
So she can appear on the desk like Princess Leia.
Yes.
That may well appeal to her. No, that's great. That's super. And we'll be on the other side of these elections then as well. So again, that's why I'm hoping we'll get Lee Dunn, because he'll be able to speak. He's at the moment they're all locked down. You know, just that bit of purdah because of the elections. And we'll maybe get some from SQ as well then. Okay, folks, it's 12:10. I'm going to let you all escape early. Thanks so much for a nice morning.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you for
Okay.
asking. Cheers.
Take care. Bye now.
Cheers.
I'm going to hold the meeting open just in case, but what I'm doing is I'm scraping the because it's the all Zoom. I'm scraping the links and things for a minute or two, so I've got them all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
See ya.
Cheers, folks. Bye now. Right. Speak then.